Over the last 1.5 years, we have organized, I think, 5 or 6 workshops on all online conferences thanks to the pandemic. And finally, we have today the first physical meeting organized by this center. And so we have here Symposium for Epidemic Modeling. And the inauguration will be done by Professor Prathap Haridoss, who is the Dean of Academic Research here. So I invite Professor Prathap here to do the honors. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's an honor to be here to inaugurate this activity that we are going to have, focused on how epidemics spread. And I can only speak as a layperson. I have no work in this area or other than what I read in newspapers and magazines and articles that are forwarded. And definitely, I think the last 2-3 years have shown us that we don't know much. Despite the best people around the world telling us what will happen, I think every month surprised us. And every time we thought it was over, it came back with greater vengeance. Then when we were afraid, it didn't seem to show up. And we had no idea where it was because numbers were, some percentage was always being reported. So clearly the epidemic was around somewhere. And we had no idea why it didn't hit us 2 months before or why it hit us now. So I think definitely from the perspective of something that impacts huge numbers of people, basically the entire world. I mean, we have now not had this situation where the entire world was shut down ever before. I think for generations, at some point this will be in the history book. I mean, when my son used to complain a lot that 2 years of his schooling was playing with friends was lost, I would say at least, when you become a grandfather, you can tell them that, look, that section you see in that history book, I was there as one of the people, who was forced to stay at home. And at least in some strange way, you are part of history. So I think that has happened. The only thing I see, as a layperson, is that I think there's a lot of social aspects to how these things spread. I do not know how deeply the scientific community looks at the social aspects, which for example, I mean, there's like a religious gathering, or there is of any religion, or there's a sports gathering and so on, and exactly how the epidemic spreads under those circumstances. Because there do seem to be gatherings and nothing happens, and then suddenly there's another gathering when there's something dramatic seems to be at least linked to that gathering. Whether it is true or not, we don't know. So I think it's a very complicated problem, and it will definitely challenge anybody who is in this field to really come up with a model that fairly accurately indicates what is going to happen. I think weather was like this some time back. Modeling of weather was very difficult. Even years ago, I remember growing up, at least on Doordarshan, the weather report primarily was the report for what had already happened. They would simply say it rained in Delhi, it rained in Chennai, and that's really all that was weather report. And almost any prediction they gave, there's only a 50% chance or 20% chance that it would be true. So you could just listen to it for good humor, and that's about it. Today it's very different. I mean, they are able to at least, in most cases, they are able to tell us at least 1 week in advance, maybe even more, what is going to happen. And it seems to be largely true. I mean, at least if you see even this past heavy rain that we had for well over a week before that, they told us it was coming, and they didn't seem to be wrong. So clearly, a lot of progress has been made in the ability to handle something so complex and complicated. I suspect something similar would happen despite all the complicated variables that exist in human society. I suspect something similar, I hope actually that something similar happens in how epidemics are handled. And I think this gathering is a great step in that direction. I wish everybody a very productive time as part of this activity. Thank you.